Wilson. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You did not bring your family with you?
They're out and about.
Up next, 4.1.2, consider approval of the 2025 district-wide capital improvement projects list and state major maintenance plan. Mr. Waterman.
Good evening, trustees. I'll introduce Matt Stark, our Director of Facilities. I think most of you know him quite well. Coming to the table today, every year our administrative team brings to you a list of capital project recommendations for the ensuing calendar year. That's been our process for years and years to come. I think it's unique in that we take a 3-year forward look at the needs of our buildings, and we have a plan in place to pursue those things and actually get that work done. We're bringing this, that list is usually on consent. We're bringing it to you tonight for singular action item to call attention to the fact that we have an expiring building reserve levy in our elementary district. Those building reserves are the primary funding source for these projects. So we thought we'd take a little bit slower walk through the list, through the process of how these things are funded, and let you know what an important aspect of our funding structures they are. So Matt Stark is all set up, or shortly will be all set up, and we'll let him walk you through those. And as he's doing that, Trustee Wilson just asked me a question. The elementary building reserve expires this year. So part of your call for election in your earlier consent agenda items was to call for that building reserve renewal going forward. So sorry, thanks. Good question.
Thank you. It looks like it works. All right. Won't take too much of your time, but as Mike mentioned, I think it's worthwhile just to go through a little bit on our capital improvement projects and the levy process and how these things get funded. So just have a little slideshow that I was going to go through with you guys, give you a little background information, and then touch on some specifics projects that we've accomplished and then ones that we're looking forward to doing in 2025. So for those of you that may not be familiar, the capital improvement projects, that's kind of our primary way that we can tackle long-term investments in our school infrastructure. So, which includes kind of trying to make sure our buildings are safe, functional, and up to modern standards and learning environments. Yeah, as listed here, typical projects, lots of HVAC, plumbing, electrical systems, fire alarm systems, as you can imagine, all the buildings, safety and security enhancements, cameras, secure entries, lighting, exterior and interior, seating, flooring, accessibility improvements within the buildings, and then also touching on athletic recreational facilities like gyms, fields, locker rooms, playgrounds. Capital improvement projects, they're funded through building reserve levies. As Mike mentioned, we have one expiring in the spring on the elementary side, and that's through local property taxes. So the levies are designed to support major school facilities projects without affecting our day-to-day operating budgets. The levies are approved by voters, and this ensures that we can fund essential repairs and renovations and construction. Just a kind of a breakdown by the numbers, I'm sure most of you are aware, but we're up to 15 actual buildings, and that adds up to over 1.4 million square feet of space, and that's on 390 acres of property. So through our building reserve funds, we're able to tackle property, interior, exterior systems, kind of as mentioned. As Mike talked about, our elementary building reserve levy, $2 million a year, 6-year cycle, approved in 19, set to expire this year. And then on the high school one is $1.5 million a year, set to expire in June of 2028. Wanted to touch on just the differences from when we last approved the elementary levy in 2019. As you can imagine, costs have skyrocketed. So it's essential for us, to pass the levies, but to get this funded just to continue to do day-to-day operations. It's kind of outlined a few things here, but inflation on material costs is ever present. Supply chain disruptions leads to longer lead times, higher cost on items, labor shortages and wage growth. that adds up to, we're seeing it, a larger bottom line on any project that we do. And then on utilities as well, we pay more for our utilities. And even if, which we are doing is trying to do energy efficient upgrades, whether that's boilers or windows, lighting, you name it, but that all is a larger upfront cost. We see the return on investment on the backside, but it certainly requires a large, substantial amount of money up front. Put a little chart together just to elaborate that a little more, but you can see a 2019 average cost for typical school construction, roof replacement, HVAC, classroom renovation, security enhancements. Just highlighted a few compared to a 2024 average cost. I'm not seeing anything pretty much that we touch that's under 50% increase. So everything we do, from utilities to light bulbs to flooring, we've seen substantial increases, upwards of 50% and more. And why this matters, it's a higher cost means the schools, we need a strategic plan. So that's kind of what we do, is put this budget together, try to forecast for these inflationary costs, and then prioritize what's most critical at each building. I think the last topic there, last line talks about it, it's with anything we do, today's dollar is going to be cheaper than tomorrow's dollar. So we try to prioritize what we need to get done, and then still forecast for the next, upcoming, we use a 3-year sort of window of what projects are coming up, but anything we can get done sooner rather than later is saving money in the long run. Just was going to run through a couple projects that we were successful in doing last year, some 2024 projects. As I'm sure many of you are aware, we were able to accomplish the Bozeman Reed's Early Learning Center down at Morningstar Elementary. We did 6 new classrooms there, added flooring to all 6, added bathrooms into 3 of them, and that involved tearing up hallways and tying into sanitary sewer and water lines. So pretty substantial renovation in 3 of the classrooms. Wilson, here at the Wilson School, we now have the Wilson Day School, so substantial improvements are still ongoing, but modifications to accommodate elementary, middle, and high school students. We created some additional classroom spaces, new flooring, doors and security upgrades. We've updated 1 restroom, more to come, an additional sensory or ITO space, a sensory room, improved lunch area, lots of work gone on in the day school here at the Wilson to make it more up to standards of our other buildings. So it's really exciting and a lot of work to still do, but it's a really fun project that's been going on so far. Just highlighted one, but we constantly are upgrading mechanical systems, as I mentioned. But last year, we did and purchased and installed 2 new boilers, new building circ pumps, and worked on the water heater there. So they basically got a whole new mechanical room over at Highlight. As I'll point out in future projects, we have similar work slated at a couple other elementary schools, trying to maximize our dollars now, purchase boilers, water heaters, things that keep, especially in weather like we have now, so keep the heat going, keep the water hot. Irving Elementary was a fun one. That had been in desperate need to repair their back playground area, so we actually tore up the old asphalt, laid down new concrete gutters, storm drains, repaved the back playground asphalt area, new walking trail, new sodded grass area. Huge success, long overdue, so was really happy to knock that one out. So far so good. It's handling, when the snow was melting, it was handling it great. Now it's just a pile of ice currently. Chief Joseph, we started a kind of a cyclical process, but the first phase to redo some flooring there. So you can see on the left, the old cafeteria flooring. In the center, there's the new flooring we put down, and then also going around and improving some entries, doing more walk-off carpets and trying to capture some of that foot traffic before it tracks through the school. So just indicative of kind of general flooring projects that we do across the district. Some 2025 upcoming ones, just wanted to highlight a couple of the bigger ones that I had on the list here. This one being the biggest is Bozeman High School, South Cafeteria renovations, South Locker Room renovations. Really early stages, but we engaged with an architect just to start concepting just to scope the project and scale it. But long story short, we have been in desperate need to improve the concessions area, specifically in the South Cafeteria. And with that, as I mentioned here, some HVAC and electrical needs to that part of the building. It's pretty dated. And then downstairs, we're looking at doing a complete remodel renovation to the locker rooms. That's new showers, restrooms, team meeting areas, laundry, storage, you name it, kind of a complete reworking of the space, circulation patterns. You can kind of see a concept of it there on the right. But just kicking it off. So we'll have a long way to go, but it's going to be a substantial, large project. Ideally, we would get an architect team under contract here in the spring. That design would most likely then kind of go through the summer, try to bid that project in the fall. And then my goal would be to ramp up for construction sort of similar time frame as now, next year, when the locker rooms aren't as in big of a need in the spring. So the goal would be to start spring and then summer construction and have it ready to go for the following year. So long way to go on that one, but that's a big lift, but desperately needed there. Also at the high schools, there's many of you are aware, the CTE program's adding another, I guess, program to their curriculum in the construction class. So when it's outlined, we're gonna, at both high schools, create an outdoor classroom area for the construction class. Working with Carl Schwartz on that, but it basically entails kind of providing a gravel fenced area, running power, storage, including those spaces in our intercoms and security camera reach. So kind of a fun one that both high schools are going to see some movement here shortly once the snow thaws out. Morningstar, phase 2 of Bozeman Reed's Early Learning Center. We were going to do a similar project, but add 2 more classrooms like we did last summer. So just kind of piggybacking onto that project, but increasing the scope down there of what Bozeman Reed's offers. And then I kind of just did some general ones that they add up really quick, but at multiple locations, we're looking at intercom replacements and modifications at CJ, SMS, BHS, GHS. Some at CJ and SMS, it's more of a replacement. At BHS and GHS, it's kind of an add-on to the system. But at some of our older buildings, the systems, we're finding this in fire alarms and in intercoms, they're just no longer supported. They've kind of exceeded their useful life cycle. So we need to start over. Well, a lot of times now we can't even get a tech or a service repair person to come and work on them. They can't source the parts. So long story short, they've just become antiquated systems. So looking to do some replacements there. In particular at the high schools, so we've done this at SMS, I believe. We would do it at CJ as well. But in the louder classroom environments like the music rooms, we'd also add a strobe. So when the announcements are going off, there'd be a light strobe that would indicate that announcements are going off. We've heard that oftentimes it's hard to hear over the music. So just some modifications like that. And then with those CTE programs, trying to get some speakers outside where there are either recess or classrooms so that they can also hear announcements. Fire alarm panels, same story. Life cycle is exceeded, and we need to replace. Systems are no longer supported, can't source parts. So at Morningstar, at Emily, and at Sacagawea, we're looking at doing full fire alarm replacements. Nothing, not a whole lot of glamorous projects, but a lot of really functional projects that we need to do. So I think the last one I touched on here was here at the Wilson, continuing kind of the reworking and re-envisioning of Wilson. Day school improvements, phase 2. We're looking at then making the upgrades to the actual gym restrooms. And then there's second floor restrooms that kind of are on the backside of the high school day school room now. Creating we have an old shower room, an old changing room that are just dated, that we're gonna do some updates to those. And then some flooring and painting and lighting and some hallways and corridors. So kind of next phase of day school improvements. With that, we're looking at doing a day school playground outside in the courtyard, just off the gym over there. But that would entail some playground equipment, fall surface, fencing, kind of just trying to create a space similar to what we have at other schools. And then on the rear of the Wilson, back there in that image, we're looking to we had a damaged storm sewer line that we needed to replace anyway, but it goes through quite a bit of concrete and asphalt. So trying to piggyback that kind of civil work with an improved pickup drop-off area for the day school. Right now, a lot of the drop-off occurs on the west gym doors of the Wilson here. This would allow buses to still pull up to the west, and then we'd have more of a vehicular drop-off, loading, unloading zone to the rear. We already sort of use that back sidewalk as that. This just improves it and kind of delineates the space and makes it safer for the school kids now that'll be coming and going out of there. And then last on the list here is a Wilson classroom improvement, sort of similar to the day school work, but just taking some existing offices that we have here at the Wilson that we haven't updated in quite a while, and creating some more functional office space and usable workspace for the occupants here at the Wilson. That's all. That's my short and sweet rattle off list there. I can answer any questions for you guys.
Thanks, Matt. Sandy?
It's good to see your face here. We haven't seen you around here for a while. We
Thank
know
you.
you've been busy behind the scenes, so thank you for coming tonight. I have always been proud of how well we take care of our facilities in this district. And it's due to a lot of the work that goes into the planning and the projecting, and some of that is you can't plan for, but it has been incredible what I've seen in my 10 years on the board. And I'm very proud of the work, and I really thank you for this and support this this proposal in front of us. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Good to be back here, and it's definitely not, it's a team effort up there, so a lot of, meet with all the custodians, all the principals, my team upstairs and facilities office, so I appreciate it. It
Yep.
takes a while, but
Well, thank them all.
thanks.
Yep.
Gary?
Yeah, thank you. I have two questions, if I could. Yeah, I agree with Sandy. Great hearing this report. One question is the elementary building reserve levy that's up for this spring.
Correct.
So you have funding in the current building reserve levy to fund the projects you identified?
We do.
Okay,
We
good.
keep some reserve in there, and then obviously we anticipate the funding to hit. So we do have the funds that we have available now, we can accomplish what we want to do, and then obviously there's some carryover each year of stuff we don't get to.
Thank you. And the second question, Mike might have to jump in on this, is does the bill in the legislature that affects mills versus dollars for levies, do you have any concern with that at all? And how will timing?
Good question. So
be
yeah,
appropriate?
there's a bill going through the legislature, as Trustee Lucien mentioned, that would limit us to asking for a specific dollar amount for all of our elections, rather than a set mill amount, which fluctuates as taxable value does. So the building reserve election in question here has always been tied to a specific dollar amount, so that wouldn't be a change for this election. So no concerns about that bill as it relates to this specific issue. I'll tell you also, just as a kind of and Lacey will allude to this here in a minute, but the expiring building reserve is 6 years, $2 million per year. With the inflating and the increasing costs that Matt referenced, we're looking preliminarily at $2.25 million per year, so $250,000 additional over what we have, but the purchasing power of that certainly is no greater than the $2 million that's expiring due to inflation. So it'll be a slight increase. We'll talk through the tax impacts here in just a minute, but from a buying power perspective, it's really no greater than what we currently have.
Any further questions for Mr. Stark? Kevin?
Matt, well, thanks for your time, all that effort going into this, and also realizing obviously it's a lot of different people, but you get to put it all together. So thank you. And this might be for you, or it might be for someone else as well. But I know that there's would Hawthorne and the Wilson fall into the TIF districts? How does that in some of the projects in the Wilson, I think, have been supplemented by the TIF district? How does that fall into some of these different projects?
Yeah, I know. I think we used TIF money for the window project, I believe, here at the Wilson. How we've done it in the past is we meet with the city finance, and we've offered projects that we think would be applicable into the different TIF districts. Currently, we're working with the city on a Whittier parking lot project that utilizes TIF money there to resurface that parking lot. So it's kind of changed over the last couple of years, but typically we've approached the city with an idea of like, here's a project that we think fits, that's within this TIF district, that we think would be a good use of the money. And that's kind of how the Whittier one generated or came about. I don't know if anything else to add, Mike?
No, I'll add just one other thing. Matt did a great job. So that the projects that we're looking at to fund directly with city funding from the TIF money is at Whittier, especially with that parking lot Fifth and Short, something around
yep.
there. Yeah, right
Yep.
there. There is another TIF district, the downtown TIF district includes Hawthorne, as you mentioned. The bonds that voters approved in 2016 for the significant Hawthorne renovation is being repaid. That portion of those bonds is being repaid with TIF proceeds from the downtown TIF.
So and then the Wilson is in a TIF? Is it then downtown?
Yeah, the Wilson's also in the downtown TIF. The remaining money that's left over from the TIF district after they pay their costs, specifically the bond costs of the parking garage, come to the district, and we're required to use that for tax relief, and that's figured into the budget every year to provide tax relief with those leftover proceeds. We don't have flexibility with that. That's a requirement of law. So it's good. It helps the taxpayers out, so we don't have any problems with that, but it's not free money that we can choose what to do with.
This is a singular action item that requires a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve, sorry.
412.
You want me to even number? All right. I'd make a motion to approve 4.1.2 as presented.
Second?
Motion made by trustee Black, seconded by trustee Moran. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thanks, Matt. Up next, 4.3.1, consider approval of CJMS principal, Superintendent Bertram.
Thank you, Chair Neal. Mr. Advincula, please come on down. Upon previous action this evening, we have moved the CJ principal to the central office. And in looking at reorganization for the 25-26 school year, the district needs to ensure an interim administrative position for a variety of factors. As you know, our middle schools and our high schools are in significant change processes. The middle school is in year 2 of moving to block schedules, building in collaborative time for teachers and braided intervention extension systems. The high school is in the first year of that implementation. Based upon those factors, I was very uncomfortable with having an interim 1-year-only principal at Chief Joseph Middle School. Also looked at a variety of other factors prior to making the recommendation this evening. That included survey results from CJMS staff regarding priorities for principal candidates, our LRSP, and our progress towards those goals at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Building level panorama school culture and climate surveys that were completed. We had great turnout, 80+% turnout this fall in those staff surveys. Also really closely analyzing current change processes in place across the district at elementary, middle, and high school. And then reflecting on recent hiring pools for administrative positions. If you recall, a year ago, we were looking at filling a position at Sacagawea Middle School. Thank goodness, had a highly qualified candidate internally, but we're able to take a look at the local, national, and state pools that are not strong at this time. Also looking at skills, expertise, and career goals of our administrative team. With all that in mind, I am super pleased to move Mr. Adrian Advincula from his current role as the Meadowlark principal to the principal at Chief Joseph Middle School. Policy 5210 gives the superintendent the authority to assign, transfer positions of all staff, including administrative staff. I bring it forward this evening to Board of Trustees because we've typically done that, convened a transparent process that allows for public comment when we're talking about positions that are important, like building administrative positions. This is a bit of a full circle moment for Mr. Advincula. He started his career at Chief Joseph Middle School as a teacher, moved on to instructional coach, moved on to principal at Irving Elementary, then was placed at a pivotal time in our district's history as the Meadowlark principal and has been there for quite a few years. This would be coming home to Chief Joseph. He is inheriting year 2 of a change process led by Mr. McClellan and his team. We're also at a great point in history with our middle schools where they've never been more collaborative. And so our principal teams at Chief Joseph and Sacagawea, similar to our high school model, are meeting weekly, if not more frequently, as they're navigating a whole bunch of big changes and also small changes that all add up to a lot of change in one building. Mr. Advincula has a lot of history of success, has some skills and abilities that are very important to what CJ needs moving forward. We will be moving away from newcomer sites for our multilingual English learner population, and Mr. Advincula has done a fantastic job of building an inclusive environment at Meadowlark where MLEL students and families are seen and they thrive. In addition to that, he has science of reading training, training in trauma-informed practices, and his school was recently named a Promising Practices School by Solution Tree. So he's done the hard work of building in collaborative PLC systems and multi-tier systems of support. Similar to Mr. McClellan, he's also a great person, and I couldn't be more excited to bring his recommendation to you this evening.
Thank you. And Adrian, I think you probably know I had 4 kids that attended Meadowlark. One year they were all there at the same time. The only time my kids have ever been in one building at the same time. It was 2 kindergartners, a 3rd grader, and a 5th grader. That was right before your time, but my kids' time spanned your predecessor, the prior principal, and then our last year there, you were our principal with my current high schoolers. And your presence in the hall was refreshing. I have really great memories of that year being a parent there. You always had a big smile, and the Meadowlark assembly on Friday mornings, whatever that was. My one memory of when every kid gets an award, the one day that one of my kids was getting an award, that's when the parents show up, and so I showed up for that, and they were playing music, and you made an entrance. You were wearing some kind of a costume, and you danced yourself to, I think you made your heart rate too high, and you literally danced yourself. You had to go down and put your hands on your knees and give everybody this before you could start facilitating the assembly, because you worked too hard during your dance thing that you were doing. And anyway, just an overall really positive year. And I remember saying to my wife that we were grateful we had Mr. A for a year at Meadowlark after all the years we've been there. And it was not positive before, but it was really great being there with one year as a family there with you. So I fully support this recommendation. Really grateful to have you in front of us today, and congratulations, and thank you very much for being willing to step up. So, and while I have the floor, before we move on to other trustee comments, I have comments from Trustee Bertelson, because she is working and out of town, that I will just read. It's real short. Congratulations, Adrian! ! I'm so grateful that you're taking this next step and bringing your skills to the CJMS team. You have an incredible knack for being inclusive, creating community, and sharing your joy of learning. So that's Trustee Bertelson. I will take further trustee questions and comments or a motion. Tanya.
I move we adopt the superintendent's recommendation and approve Mr. A as the Chief Joseph Middle School principal.
Second.
Motion made by Trustee Reinhardt, seconded by Trustee Black. Trustee Lucine?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify that I appreciate your motion, but it's not specific to the superintendent's recommendation. So some of it was left out. So I would just suggest we approve the motion as presented.
Approve the motion as presented.
Would you like to resecond?
Accepted. Second. Not sure if that's Robert's rules very well.
Motion made by Trustee Reinhardt and seconded by Trustee Black. Is there any public comment? Yes.
Well, I wanted to comment just
Heather, could we have you come forward and speak into the mic? And would you mind, Adrian, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay there. Maybe just sit down next to Mr. A and hit the green button. And when you're done talking, Heather, I know who you are, but if you could write your name and address on the
Yes,
clipboard. You don't
of
have to do that
course.
now, but afterwards.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
I had, all three of my kids went through Irving. My first, I had 1 year with Brueggemann, and I just remember him saying, I have a really great person I think is gonna be awesome to replace me. And I was like, how can you ever replace Brueggemann? But it was amazing. So I had a few things I wanted to say, and then I just sort of pulled some of the kids in the neighborhood, and anyway, it was a really amazing experience at Irving having Adrian there. Mr. A always had an open door policy. These are my comments. Anytime as a parent, if I had a problem, I could sit with him and I truly felt heard, and we would work toward a solution. I also love that Mr. A spent a lot of time outside his office, spending time with the kids in the classroom to truly get to know the kids and know what is needed by both teachers and students. And he truly seemed to try to know each and every one of those students. I served on the PAC group for the school and found Mr. A to be very supportive of our endeavors whenever it was bringing in, whether it was bringing in art or theater or establishing on-campus gardens. Fun. Mr. A is fun, as you just alluded to. He always got involved. He ran with the kids at the fun run. He volunteered to be duct taped and pies thrown at his face, anything to earn money for Irving. I really love that. So here's some quotes from the kids. I just am using first names only. This is from Mia. Mr. A had a personal connection with the students. He saw each of us as individual people. August says, Mr. A was nice and focused on his job. He brought joy to the students and created a safe environment for us. Adele says, I think one great thing about Mr. A is that he really tried to get to know everyone. When I see him in public, he always recognizes me first and remembers exactly who I am. This is from Maeve. This is my statement on why I believe Mr. A would make a great principal at CJ. Mr. A was my principal while I went to Irving Elementary School. I have very fond memories of my time at Irving, and I believe that Mr. A contributed to the wonderful culture of the school. International Day was an important event that students looked forward to every year and demonstrated how Mr. A worked to make students of all backgrounds feel welcomed and valued. Another way that shows Mr. A's dedication to his students' learning was his work with my mom to implement the Irving School Garden. This was such an important program and allowed kids to participate in hands-on learning at a young age. I still remember how much joy I felt being able to pull up my own carrot, wipe off the dirt, and eat it. Mr. A also took the time to show up to the graduation parties of his former students. It was such a lovely experience to connect with him about my future goal of wanting to be a teacher. I believe these fond memories to be just a few of the many instances in which Mr. A demonstrated how much he cares about his students and education. Middle school is a pivotal time for adolescents' lives where they need guidance and kindness, and I wholeheartedly believe that Mr. A can provide that support. And two more comments. One by Moselle. Mr. A is without a doubt the best principal I've ever had. In fact, I would go as far as to say that he was more like a friend than a principal. His presence was always warm, approachable, and understanding, making him someone students could genuinely trust. I truly believe he played a huge role in making my elementary school years unforgettable. His leadership at Irving Elementary School wasn't just about enforcing rules, but about fostering a strong sense of community and belonging among both students and staff. He created an environment where everyone felt valued, heard, and supported, and it's something I will always be grateful for. Thanks, Mr. A. My time at Irving Elementary was filled with positive experiences and a sense of unity that I will carry with me to this day. And the last comment is from Elsie. You can tell how much he cares about his students and staff. Having him come to our graduation party meant so much to me. He has not been our principal in 7 years, but he still made the effort to show us how proud he was of all of us. And she put an exclamation point. So I'll just finish with our years at Irving, for me, were so special, and I'm so grateful because I believe most of this is due to Mr. A and how he could bring people together. I believe he would be great at whatever he chooses next.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heather, if you could write your name down there. Yeah, thanks. Any further public comment? Yes, please come forward. Please let us know your name and make your comments. Thank you.
Should I write my name in right now?
You can wait till Heather's done and do it afterwards.
My name is Shelley Wunsch, and my two daughters had the pleasure of going to Irving School from kindergarten through 5th grade. And not every kid can say that they loved elementary school. Not every kid's gonna be have all these fabulous memories and remember elementary school. My daughters will remember so many absolute wonderful things about going to elementary school with Adrian as their principal. And the things that stood out to me, and I asked my daughters and I asked my husband, and we all came up with a lot of the things that Heather also said, but the thing that really impressed me the most throughout my years at Irving, and I was an intervention teacher for a couple of years there, and I was a substitute teacher, and I was on the PIC, and he just cares. He cares so much about every single student, every teacher, every staff member, every family. Everyone felt supported. I always felt so supported. And he was always so positive, and he was really good at building strong relationships with everyone, from students to teachers to family. It felt like a family, and that's what we always used to say. You know, we have a family at Irving. And yeah, and I'm just so happy for you. And my younger daughter, Ruby, you know, I said, well, is there anything else that you want to say? Well, he's just so good. He's just going to get the job, you know? So anyways, we're really happy for you. And he always just listened, and he was always there for everyone. So I just wanted to say those things.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And do I sign here?
Yep, that'd be great.
Oh, okay.
Yep, thanks. Any further public comment? Seeing none? Kevin?
Well, congratulations. I think this is well-deserved. I think based on the comments, and then just my interactions over the years with you. I haven't had a student in your school, so I can't speak to that directly, but just the interactions that I've had with you on a regular basis, it kind of reminds me of what I see throughout the district, is that your why is the students and seeing them succeed. And I think that's really important. That's not really something you can just train and tell everybody this is your why. So I appreciate that part about what you do and what brings you to the schools and your support. So I look forward to seeing how you this next role, and it's exciting to see you going to be in it. So congratulations.
Sandy?
Well, I don't get to vote on this because I'm a high school trustee. I have interacted with you, Adrian, because I was a liaison to Meadowlark for a couple of years, and I loved going to that school. It felt so welcoming walking in there, and I loved all the different reasons why you gave me to come and see what was happening in the school during that time. So I can't vote for it, but I support it. I just wanted you to know that. So very excited to, I guess I can't say anything until we vote, right?
You can say all you want.
I don't want to act like it's already a done deal, but I just am really, really excited that you've been brought forward for this position.
Any further comments? Gary?
So in my time on the board, I've interacted with Adrian when he was a teacher and through his principal at Irving and Meadowlark, and been very consistent personality, and I agree with everything that's been said tonight, and congratulations, and keep on moving up.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment anywhere? All in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations. I guess I should ask, do you have anything that you'd like to say? You don't need to say anything if you don't have anything, but
I was just enthralled by Matt's presentation prior, so I really,
it was amazing.
I mean, it was so amazing. Tips and whatnot, that was stunning, just sparkled and sparkled. No, gosh, I saw these two, I saw these three, and I was thinking, what are they doing here? Thank you. I'm really excited. It is a homecoming. I mean, 20 years ago, that's where I started, when CJ was attached to the high school, and middle schoolers always have a special place in my heart because that's when I started in Vancouver way back when. I know it's crazy, right, Lauren? Not that many people say that. And when you really, I guess you really want to do it if you want to go back to middle school.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to be a fun time. I mean, I'm thankful I get to follow in the footsteps of Patrick and the team that just set just a wonderful foundation. I'm excited to work with Ashley and Holly and the people over at SMS. I'll try to avoid SMS enough so that my daughter doesn't get embarrassed by me. But I think this is going to be a really fun next chapter in what I do, how I get to contribute to Bozeman schools. So thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. Grateful to have you. Congratulations. Up next, board discussion, 5.2, committee reports.
The Equity Advisory Committee met on January 23rd online, and we discussed revisions to the, proposed revisions to the attendance procedure and the impact that it might have on certain groups of students and families, and that was an interesting discussion. And then we also had an MLEL update, and the committee discussed ways to support students and staff and protocols with regards to current trends with immigration.
Any further committee reports? Thank you, Mars. Seeing none, we will move on to 5.3, preliminary 2025-26 preliminary budget discussion. Mrs. Clark.
There we go. Good evening, trustees. It's kind of crazy to think that we are starting this talk again. I feel like we just really adopted this year's budget, and now it's February, and we're looking ahead to fiscal year 26. So I wanted to go over a few things. There's a lot to be considered at this point in time, and a lot of fluid items happening with the legislature. And so this is very preliminary. I just want to preface it with that. We will know more as the session goes on, and we will just kind of mold and adapt to what is thrown our way and try to do our best to communicate it to you so that you're all in the loop. What I'm going to go over tonight is just the general fund budget projections. We could go over a lot more than 2 scenarios at this point, but these are the 2 that I think have good probability of becoming reality. And so we'll walk through what both of those situations look like. We'll talk briefly about the building reserve, follow up with kind of what Matt shared with you guys about the capital projects going on in the district. A quick calendar look to show you what is going to happen between now and adopting the budget in August. And then a brief tax outlook for just different bills that could affect different items in the budget. So budget projections. So scenario number one is looking at House Bill 15. House Bill 15 is the one that is presented near the beginning of each session, and it is regarding the inflationary increases that are up for approval. 3% is the maximum cap at this point in time that the inflationary increases are allowed. Right now, House Bill 15 is proposing 3% increase for the 25-26 budget season, as well as the 26-27. As we know, 3% doesn't mean we get the entire 3%. 3% means we still have to ask the voters for the last bit of the pie. So when we look at the numbers for scenario one, we have to look at a couple different things. That top line there is our current general fund budget in both the elementary and high school. So that's what the budget is that we're working off of this year. When we look to 26, we have to look at two budgets in two different ways. We have to look at highest budget without a vote. So that would be if we ask the voters for additional general fund money and they chose to not approve it. That would be the budget we're looking at. If we ask the voters for this additional general fund budget and they do vote it, then that's the bottom line. Basically, these are the increases from this current year up to next year's budget. So you can see best case scenario, we're looking at an increase of $853,000 preliminarily in the elementary and then $1.4 million in the high school. The high school is significantly higher because we know that enrollment is still increasing at the high school level. It's pretty stagnant at the elementary. So that's why there's the additional increase at the high school as compared to the elementary.
Lacey,
Yes.
can I hit pause? Laszlo, could you do me a favor? Because you're closest, would you mind propping open that door? We're supposed to keep those open because it's an open meeting. Just choose one. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lacey.
Yep, no problem. So scenario number two is a bit bigger of a scenario, I guess I would say, and this is the STARS Act. So STARS Act, in conjunction with House Bill 15, which is the inflationary one we just spoke about, the STARS Act would give us a considerable bump in the general fund budget. What we're going to look at here is the STARS Act with that 3% inflationary increase. So just like you saw on the previous slide for scenario one, our current budget is $37 and $25 million respectively for elementary and high school. Highest budget without a vote, or if the voters were to say no to the levy. There we go. We would be up to $39 million and $26 million. And then if they did vote in the additional general fund levy, it would be significantly higher. So we're looking, if both general fund levies in high school and elementary were to pass, we'd be looking at about a $4.2 million increase in general fund budget, which is a big number. So just comparatively, so you can see both scenarios side by side. Best case outcomes, meaning everybody votes both the general fund levies. Scenario one, $853,000 increase for elementary, 1.4 for high school. And then like I just said, if we passed both general fund budgets for elementary and high school under the STARS Act, we would be looking at $4.2 million. What that means is as we're looking preliminarily at what we need to ask voters for, we're looking at about $320,000 in elementary general fund and $750,000 in high school general fund. Once again, that goes back to the high school having higher enrollment. Therefore, we can ask for additional funds. The cost per $100,000 on the home is based off of this year's taxable value. Obviously, when we go to voters, that's what we will use on the ballot, but we know that that will change. This is a reappraisal year, and we know last time there was a reappraisal year, it was a really big deal. So we don't know necessarily what to anticipate for that, but we know that there will be changes. We had our winter enrollment count last Monday, and once those numbers are finalized, they'll get submitted to the state by Friday. And once we have those compiled, then we'll really start plugging numbers in to see exactly what we should come to you at the March board meeting to ask, to recommend for voters to pass. Any questions on the two scenarios for the general fund? Okay. This, I think, is really important to always share with you guys. This is the budget projections, budget versus actual. The blue line is the budget, the orange line is the actual. Obviously, we always budget, as we've said over the years, for really cold winters, to be fully staffed. So our budget is typically higher dollar amount than the actual spend is. What we saw is we saw the big budget creep happen in fiscal year 20 into 21 with a lot of the work from the budget committee. We reversed that. What we're seeing now is costs are still increasing. We still only get 3% inflationary increase. So the blue line has really leveled off. We obviously don't know what the actual numbers are going to look like. I would guess that they're going to follow similar to what the trend lines up there have looked like for the orange one. But it's something we need to always keep in mind that budget-wise, we are still in a deficit. And so passing the levies is really important. We have a very generous community, as we all know, that supports public education, and we're so grateful for that, but it takes a lot of work and a team effort to make that happen. So you guys will have some dates on your calendars here coming up to help spread the word. So with that being said, the elementary building reserve will be on the ballot. As Mike and Matt said, it is currently at $2 million, expiring here at the end of this year. It's proposed to take it to $2.25 million. You can see the mills comparison and the $100,000 home comparison. That, once again, is based on current taxable value. So that's not taking into account that if taxable value increases, then those numbers will change up a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to add something to this, going off script just a little bit, but it speaks to Trustee Lucine's question about the flat dollar amounts on the levy. As we look back, the existing building reserve, if you look at that top set of numbers up there, the currently $2 million per year 6 years ago, when that $2 million was approved 6 years ago, the tax impact per year per $100,000 house was $17.28. And you can see that that's come down significantly, currently $7.60. That's the growth in our tax base. So as we have a flat dollar amount that's being levied, but you have more property being built up, the tax impact per taxpayer drops significantly, and you can expect to see that probably not as quickly going forward. Don't anticipate a 50% increase in 1 year in our tax base, but we have seen growth over time. So that tax impact proposed for next year, 845, is probably the high number, and it'll come down over the course of that 6 years if approved. Thanks.
Kevin?
On the building reserve, if the money's not used in that year, does that ever get into an interlocal agreement where it can be, or is it only elementary? If it goes from elementary, it's only elementary and can't be spent into high school?
Yep, and we roll it over year to year, so we have a fund balance every year with building reserve. And the way we have to structure the budget for building reserve is a little bit different than how we structure it for all the other funds. Typically, we like to do our big projects in the summer when the kids aren't in school. And so that crosses over fiscal years. So we have to look at kind of a calendar year aspect and play with the numbers a little bit and make sure that our fund balance is large enough going into the ensuing year, just to make sure that we can cover all those projects.
Gary?
Thank you, Lacey. Can you remind us when do we get the assessed value?
It'll be the first part of August. The first week in August, we'll get it.
Okay.
And it'll be based on January 1st, 2024 values. The values, the assessment is based on that date.
Okay.
So it takes them a while to compile everything. And that leads me right into what the calendar looks like from here on out. So on the March 10th meeting, we will ask that you certify ballot language, and we set the voted levy amounts. And then we will ask for you to approve the notice of permissive levy increase. In the newspaper each year, we put in our anticipated increases for the upcoming year so that the public is aware of those. In April, like I said, your calendars are going to fill up with community levy presentations that are really important to get the word out and help the community understand what we're asking for and why. May, we will have the trustee and levy election. That'll be on May 6th. May is going to be a really busy month. We're going to start with the levy elections. Actually, before that is classified negotiations, election, certified negotiations. The legislative session will also end. So a lot to look for happening in May. June will be nice and quiet with the end of school year. July, you'll hear more finalized numbers at the preliminary budget presentation, but we can't finalize anything until August when we do get that taxable value from the Department of Revenue. And then we will ask that you adopt the final budget for 25-26 in August. And then just kind of to have on your radars, like we spoke about for this upcoming election, we have 2 elementary trustee seats that will be open. We'll have the elementary and high school general fund levies, the elementary building reserve fund levy, and then just a reminder that it is a reappraisal year. So we'll get those numbers at the beginning of August. When we look forward, not this election, but the election following in spring of 2026, these are the items that we have on our radar to possibly put on the ballots. It's 2 trustee seats, elementary and high school general fund levies. This is part of the STARS Act. So the STARS Act has lots of different components in it. One of the components is if we live in a high cost of living area, we can ask for 5% more in the general fund. Why we anticipate waiting and not asking for it this year is because next year, you can see that little red arrow. That's our schedule of bond payments for the high school. You can see that from fiscal year 26 to 27, we're gonna have a pretty big drop. So it's about a $1.8 million decrease in bond payments, and we thought that that would be a good time to ask the voters for an additional cost of living general fund levy to help offset the increase, make it so it's more of a cost neutral decision that they have to make. So that's on the radar for the next year, just to keep in your back pocket.
I think tied to that, part of the strategy as we're starting to look towards what we're going to put in the election flyer and what we're going to communicate to the community is if the STARS Act passes, you saw those potential big numbers, $4.2 million increase. The priority would be around staffing and being able to provide wage and benefit increases to our existing staff. The TEACH Act, STARS Act is also tied to that beginning teacher salary, and we would be able to, with that $4.2 million, offer something very competitive for our starting teachers, all the while knowing that it doesn't make it affordable to live in Bozeman. So then year 2, the communication in the spring of 26 would be around cost of living adjustments. There's flexibility in the language in the STARS Act where we could take that delta between the delta of savings and apply it towards cost of living adjustments, which would equal salary increases again for all of our staff members. So it's sort of like a year 1 salaries and benefits tied to recruitment and retention, year 2 cost of living increases.
Gary?
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I should know the answer to this, but I don't. In the STARS Act, is that an ongoing funding model? So it's not just next year or the year after. We can count on that to be a consistent revenue stream?
We can count on it until the legislature reconvenes.
In 2027?
I mean, it's built in as a permanent funding source moving forward, but
Okay.
subject to future legislation. Yep.
And as we look on the horizon, these are just a few funding bills that would impact what we're communicating to taxpayers, what we're looking at for our budget. House Bill 156 is the countywide base levies. So that right now we levy our general fund base based off of our district's taxable value, and we levy directly to taxpayers within our district. What this would basically do, and we do this already for the retirement fund and for the transportation fund, we would send the amount of money in our base that we need to the county. They would add all of the school districts in the county together, and then they would levy it over across the county. So it wouldn't just be levies specific for our district, for our taxpayers. It would be spread out more. So that's House Bill 156. Senate Bill 204 scares me. It is one that wants to limit the duration of levies to 10 years without voter reapproval. So any levies that are older than 10 years or permanent levies, it basically means that we would have to revote all of those existing levies. So that would inflict some fear into my heart if that one moves forward in the legislature. House Bill 231 is one that we're keeping our eye on. This is Governor Gianforte created a property tax committee that came up with different solutions for how they can and hope to kind of negate the rising costs of property taxes. One of the items that came of this is lower tax rate for certain residential properties. So the lower tax rate would apply to single-family homes and long-term rentals. If somebody owns a second home, they would have a tax increase. If somebody has a short-term rental, they would have a tax increase. So we would still be levying the same amount of money overall. It would just be some people would be paying less, some people would be paying more. So we're watching that one. And then House Bill 339, I believe that was heard today, and I don't know what the outcome of that was, but this is to fund 6th graders at the same A and B as 7th and 8th graders. We know that 6th graders have always been funded at the elementary A and B level, which is lower than the high school A and B. So this bill would allow us, as long as we offer a middle school, junior high program that works with this, then we would be able to get the funding at the high school rate. So fingers crossed that that one works itself out. Obviously, these are all different things that we could have taken into consideration and created a lot more scenarios for you. But just to have them on your radar that if and when they do pass, we will take that into account and we'll adjust accordingly. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for what the year looks like?
Lacey mentioned this, but I think it bears repeating to make sure that we're crystal clear on this. When the legislature is in session every other year, you will be asked to set levy request amounts without full information. Like we have to set, and her calendar brought that out real clear, but we have to set our final levy amounts in March. The legislature's not going to wrap up their work until late April. So just be aware that we're doing our best with anticipating what they might come up with and coming up with recommendations on dollar amounts from there. But just please, and again, just to reiterate, incomplete information every other year.
Which is nothing new. Yeah. Thank you, Lacey. Up next, 5.4 legislative update. It says Casey and Waterman, so whomever would like to talk.
I think we'll both talk a little bit. The two big funding bills that Lacey presented were House Bill 15, the inflation bill, and House Bill 252, the STARS Act. The inflation bill passed third reading in the House, 78-20, so it looks like it's in good shape headed to the Senate. The STARS Act passed second reading in the House, 93-7, now goes to House Appropriations. Again, that's the one that has some of the prominent voices that need to be on a bill on that bill. So David Beatty and Lou Jones and other bipartisan leaders. And we only talked about a few of the components of the STARS Act. So there are some other things that kick in the STARS Act in future years. For example, in I think 26, 27, there's a Future Ready payment that is tied to any of our students that have AP courses, dual credit courses, or any sort of industry credentialing, like our kids that get food safe certification or welding certification. All of those things will generate funding for the high school and the elementary district that they matriculated from. So there's some additional funds in that STARS Act. And then again, Lacey alluded to the cost of living adjustment where you could go up to 105%. So that's a big ticket item and one that we are hopeful for. The one that's been garnering a lot of attention, and you're probably getting a lot of calls to action from School Boards Association and advocacy groups, is House Bill 320. It's the Academic Prosperity Program for Schools Act. Reminder, we're keeping a short list of bills that are either, one, directly tied to the approved priorities of this board, or two, the stance or the associated with the bill differs from the educational advocates. So House Bill 320, one of your priorities was to oppose legislation that would take public dollars to private entities. This is that slippery slope where it's that fast track to what's going on in Arizona. This is significant tax credits. They're trying to sell it as opportunities for low-income families to attend private schools, and it will not equal opportunities for low-income families to attend private schools. It narrowly passed second reading, 51 to 48. It goes to House Appropriations and then back to the House probably on Wednesday. So if you're doing calls to action on that one, that's a big one. Waterman.
I ran out of time this afternoon to update the spreadsheet, but there is a bill proposed by a legislature, both of the name, the number of the bill and the legislature I forgot, but I'll get back to it. It talks about realigning district boundaries to coincide with safety issues and access to public services. The bill was written, I think, to address the issue down in Big Sky, where a lot of the property in Big Sky is in Madison County, serviced by Ennis, and then an interest in making sure that those folks can access things without going over a road that doesn't really exist to get to Ennis. The reason I bring it up to you is because it talks about, we have a similar situation here with our property located north of the, what's it called, Bankdale Divide? It's up. What's the name of the campground? Battle Ridge is what it was called. All those kids north of Battle Ridge within our district, the county has declared that to be a geographic boundary because it's just bad roads to get from that area to Bozeman. So those folks go to Shields Valley School District right now. We pay tuition to Shields Valley School District. My reading of the bill is that it would still be subject to election, but that property has a lot in common with the situation down at Big Sky and the inaccessibility of those properties down there. So nothing we need to do. I'll fill in the spreadsheet and get you more information, but it's just something to be aware of, to watch as this one goes through.
Trustee questions? Okay, thank you. Public comment on non-agenda items. Laszlo. You don't have to talk if you don't have anything to say, it's okay.
Had a lot of fun. I was glad I was able to stay tonight, so yeah.
Thank you for staying. 7.1, Executive Cabinet Reports.
We will need the second meeting in February, so February 24th. We have, as Laszlo mentioned, freshman orientation things going on, and we have a whole bunch of awards that it's a good problem to have. We have too many awards to fit into the March meeting. So we will be splitting some of those up in the next meeting, and then again in March. We'll also be bringing, it's not required to go to the board, but we have a new accreditation process, and we're in year 2 of a 3-year cycle, and we brought year 1 to the board, and I just kind of walked you through it so that you see what we're actually submitting. We'll probably do the same thing for this year 2 accreditation, so you're in the loop on that. And then also February 24th will be the big list of open enrollment. So we've gone through, you've been approving a handful of students over time that move in or move out, those pieces of the puzzle, but this is the big, we advertised in the month of January and have vetted all those applications. We'll be bringing the list for 25-26 on February 24th.
Any further? Questions? Last, 7.2, Board of Trustees reports. Lauren?
Just really quickly, I was talking to one of the teachers at Bozeman Reeds, and we'll be at Morningstar on the 25th, and she invited any board members to stay after our meeting if we want. She teaches phonemic awareness from around 10:10 to 10:30, and then literary stations from 10:30 to 11:15. And so I'll stay at Morningstar for that, but she also just asked if anybody wants to come see what they're doing over there with Bozeman Reeds. She'd love to see people. I know Melissa's also going this week. So if you can't stay that day and you want her contact information, I'd also like to give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary?
Thanks. Just related to House Bill 320, this morning I was listening to KGVM, local radio station. Their program from 11 to 12 is always very informative. But today it was about a journalist who just wrote an article about Ohio and the same kind of the voucher situation that they're going through. I just caught the last few minutes of it, but it's not good for Ohio public education. So we're always using the Arizona example, but there's other states in the country that are experiencing the same thing with that type of funding.
Yeah, and I would just tack on to that. I think we all get the MTSBA updates every day. And just so everyone knows, I don't call myself the chair, I call myself the Bozeman trustee, and I've responded to every single call to action since the beginning of the legislative session. And if anyone's interested in doing it and hasn't done it before, it's pretty slick. You just click on a link, and often MTSBA has actually pre-filled, crafted a message that you reword and make your own, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. They do a good job of guiding us through that. And I don't know if it's helpful or not. I have no idea, but I've submitted it every time they've sent out a request for a call to action. Any further Board of Trustees reports? All right, then. You have anything?
I thought we were going to be here till midnight.